بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والدعاء على الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Pray that you're all well, inshallah ta'ala. Today is gotten to us the last session. Obviously, we have a session next week, inshallah ta'ala, but that will be more so like a fun thing, like a quiz to recap everything which we have covered so far, inshallah ta'ala. On this course, we'll talk about more about it towards the end of the class, inshallah ta'ala. But today will be like the last quote unquote theory session. So we have a bit of ground to cover, inshallah ta'ala. So yeah, we'll start as usual with our recitation. I think we are reciting, which page? I think it's the third page, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah, of Surah Al Imran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يقولون ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. الصابرين والصادقين والقانتين والمنفقين والمستغفرين بالأسحار. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط. لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. وما اختلف الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءتهم العلم بغيا بينهم. ومن يكفر بآيات الله فإن الله سريع الحساب. فإن حاجوك فقل أسلمت وجهي لله ومن اتبعن. وقل للذين أوتوا الكتاب والأميين أأسلمتم؟ فإن أسلموا فقد اهتدوا، وإن تولوا فإنما عليك البلاغ، والله بصير بالعباد. إن الذين يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير حق ويقتلون الذين يأمرون بالقسط من الناس فبشرهم بعذاب أليم. أولئك الذين حبطت أعمالهم في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم من ناصرين. صدق الله العظيم. Any questions? Any questions, inshallah ta'ala? Any questions? Okay, so my turn to ask questions. There you go. So where is this? Okay, someone who's not been on the Tajweed course, try to answer first, inshallah ta'ala. So this ayah here, فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ, how long should you do this alif mad here? How long should you do it and why? Fadl, who
For
wants to go?
6 harakat because the mad is followed by a shadda.
Yeah, 6 harakat because it's the mad followed by shadda. Excellent. Jazakallah khairan, Adam. Very good. Now someone else. So for instance, ما جاءهم. So here, إلا من بعد ما جاءهم. How long is this mad for and for what reason? Someone else?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Four
alaikum
count. Four counts
Excellent.
because there's a hamza afterwards.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Excellent. So that's 4 counts. Very good. And likewise here, La ilaha illa huwa. Yeah. So again, that's going to be 4 because it's followed by Hamza, but it's in the next word. So for whatever reason, if you happen to stop there, then you just do La. You don't do La. Why? Because you've stopped there. The Hamza is not there anymore. You've stopped. Yeah. So you've created. So it's going back to its original. It's the default, which is 2 counts. But if you carry it on, La ilaha illa huwa al-azizul hakim. Yeah, so then it goes back to its original. Yeah, it goes back, it reverts back. Yeah, okay, something else. Okay, here. وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا. What about this noon here? How are we to read it? Like, based on how it's written, what do you think you should be doing? وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا. Are you reading the noon clearly, or are you making it to a ta completely, or somewhere in between? And how do you know? I'm not interested in quote unquote the name, the actual term. Just want to know what you understand. That's all from looking at the Mushaf.
Would you apply ikhfa because the noon sakin is followed by a ta?
Yeah, it is correct. That's correct. So, how do you know that? By looking at it, just from looking at the Mushaf, you don't see a sukoon on the noon, and there's no shadda on the ta after as well. So there's an interaction, but it's neither of the two extremes. One, that the noon is completely clear, in which case there would be no interaction, or that the noon completely becomes the ta. So you read وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا وَإِن. Yeah, you read it with an ikhfa. Okay, khair inshallah ta'ala. Yeah, likewise. Basirun bil ibad. So this noon of the tanween is changed into a meme because of the ba after, and the sign is it's replaced. The second haraka of the tanween is replaced by meme. Basirun bil ibad. Yeah. Bismillah. That's enough, inshallah ta'ala. I'm just mindful of we have quite a lot to cover today. We have quite a lot to cover, obviously, because it's the last theory session. So obviously we need to tie things up. So today we may be talking about, yes, there are a few things which we are going to talk about, which will come up more often than not. Yeah, there are things which you'll encounter on a regular basis, not so infrequently when you're reading, inshallah ta'ala. But there are other things which will happen rarely, once or twice, or a handful of times, which nonetheless you should know of with regards to how to read. Yeah, so we'll mention a few things. So don't get overwhelmed by the amount of detail there. So previous classes were more conceptual with regards to getting concepts. So today there might be a lot of minute details with regards to, in this particular instance, this is what you do. And that particular and such place, this is what you do. and so on and so forth, and what the Musaf is trying to tell you. But before we get into that, there's one thing we need to talk about, following on our discussion from last class. So we need to complete our discussion. There's one thing we need to talk about with regards to the tanween. With regards to the tanween, which is, so there's two things we need to bear in mind. There's two things to bear in mind. A tanween is always read on joining. Yeah, we discussed this last class. A tanween, so this noon which is hidden inside the second haraka is always read on joining. Yeah, and the hamzatul wasl is never read on joining. It's only ever read on starting on it. Yeah, so when you're joining, there's no hamzatul wasl. Hamzatul wasl is just dropped. Yeah. So can anyone see what the issue is? Can someone like spot the issue in trying to read this now? Yawma idin. So yawma idin, what will be after now? Oh, it's okay. Anyone can answer now. Go ahead.
How do you start on the next word?
Yeah. So if you're carrying on yawma idin, then how do you carry on? Yes, Elias, go ahead. What do you think we should be doing?
Yawma idhinil mustaqarr.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Yeah. But yeah, that's the point we're trying to make. So the issue here is two sukuns have come together. Yeah. So if you were to write out the noon sakin and the tanween, it would be written like this. Yeah. Yawma idin, and then you have a lam. So two sukuns have come next to each other. It's called iltiqa'u sakinain. It's a topic in and of itself which needs discussion. But we'll suffice with what we need to know to do in this scenario. So what you do is you read this noon with a kasra. To resolve this issue, two sukuns next to each other, you can't read. Yeah, the Arabs don't, you can't. So you don't do yawma idin mustaqar. No, you don't do yawma idin mustaqar. You can't do that. You can't go from a sukun into another sukun, generally speaking. So what do? You give the noon a kasra. So you read, like Brother Ilyas correctly said, يَوْمَ إِذِنِ الْمُسْتَقَرُ. Yeah, you read يَوْمَ إِذِنِ الْمُسْتَقَرُ. You read the noon with a kasra. Obviously, this will not be written in the Mushaf. The first line is what's written in the Mushaf. But you need to know what to do. People usually, what do? They go يَوْمَ إِذِ الْمُسْتَقَرُ. يَوْمَ إِذِ. They pretend like there's no tanween there, there's no noon there. It's just brush it under the carpet. No, the tanween is always read when you carry on. Yeah, without exception. So what do? You put a kasra onto there. You put a kasra onto the noon of the tanween. يَوْمَ إِذِنِ الْمُسْتَقَرُ. Any questions on that? Why is there no indication? Why is there no indication with regards to what you should be doing? Because the letter which now you have to read with the kasra, the letter itself is a letter which is not written. The tanween by definition is a letter which is not written. Yeah, the noon of the tanween, period, is never written. It's always recited on joining, carrying on, but never written. If you see a noon written, that means it's not a noon of tanween. So the reason you don't see a sign in the Mushaf for this particular scenario that you read the noon with a kasra is because the noon itself is not written in the first place, due to necessity, of the Arabic language itself, let alone the Quran, the writing of the Quran being wahi, and that's how it was revealed. So any questions? Does that make sense how you read the tanween, which is followed by a sukun, the sukun in the next word? Any question on that?
Yes, Ustad, just one question. So
Yeah.
if we were to read ila rabbika yawma izil mustaqar and ila rabbika yawma izinil mustaqar, would that change the meaning of the word?
It's a major mistake. It's a major mistake because you've dropped the letter. So obviously we haven't mentioned this previously. So major mistakes are those in which letters are either dropped or added, or harakat are changed. Like the fatha dhamma kasra is changed. It's no longer a fatha or dhamma. It's changed into something else. So those are major mistakes in recitation. So if the letter is either, if the letter is dropped or the letter is incorrect in its pronunciation. So someone reads like a ta, like a ta. That's a major mistake. A saw, like a sa, seen. Those are major mistakes. So, or if letters get dropped. So these basically like obvious mistakes. Like if either these things, they are, you should try, though those are not, those are classed technically as minor mistakes because they are considered to be secondary issues. These issues, they are more like you've changed the letter now. It's got like, it's because, or you've dropped a letter. So in this case, you've dropped a letter. That noon of the tanween, which is present in the recitation, you've dropped it. If you did yawma idil mustaqar, so that's a major mistake. Yeah.
Yes, I understand now, Ustad. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So a few examples. Bismillah, we'll go. So basically what we just explained, the tanween is always read on joining and the hamzatul wasl is always dropped on joining. Yeah. So the tanween is always read on joining and the hamzatul wasl is always dropped on joining, which leaves us with this scenario, which is the meeting of two sukuns coming together, which is called iltiqa'u sakinain. So what do we do? The noon of the tanween is read with a kasra. The noon of the tanween is read with a kasra. إِلَى رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمُسْتَقَرُّ. So the noon of the tanween is read with a kasra. Yeah? Few examples, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah. We'll go through one by one in the class. Adam, Bismillah. Let's start things off. So كذبت, how do you read? كذبت?
عدو
Excellent. عادوا للمرسلين. عادوا للمرسلين. Aisha, next one, please. So فله Aisha. Okay. Hajra, please. So فله
جزاء الحسنى.
جزاء الحسنى.
عفوا جزاء
نعم. فله جزاء الحسنى. نعم. Very good. جزاك الله خيرا. حمزة, كذبت قوم
لوط المرسلين.
Very good. جزاك الله خيرا. Ilyas, next one. ونادى
ونادى نوح ابنه.
نوح. Don't change the original haraka on the ha. نوح نبنه. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
ونادى. Sorry?
Yes, I understand now.
Yeah, okay. جزاك الله خيرا. Khalida or Khalida. So إنا زينا السماء الدنيا
بزينة الكواكب.
Excellent. جزاك الله خيرا. محمد, إن ترك محمد.
عفوا إن ترك خيرا الوصية.
Yeah, good. Yeah, خيرا الوصية. Very good. Shibir, sorry, yeah, next one, please. So this is very common. People recite Ikhlas in pretty much every other prayer, possibly in every other rak'ah. But and they potentially read it all in one breath, but they make major mistake when doing that. So how would you join the first and the second ayah of Surah Ikhlas? So قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ
أحد الله أحد الله
no أحد الله
أحد
الصمد.
الله الصمد.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. Yeah. So I've had people reciting in prayer like as the Imam reciting قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدُ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. Yeah. So that's again major mistake. You've dropped a letter. You've dropped a letter. Bismillah. Zainab. So وإذا علم من آياتنا
شيئا نتخذها
Shay'an, what do you do with this noon now? With this noon, Shay'an, what do you do to the noon?
join it with the ta.
Yeah, but what do you do to the noon? What I think you need to give it a, what do you call it? Zabar.
Yeah, النت
Shay'an ittakhadhaha.
شيء
Again,
إن نتخذها
Shay'an ittakhadhaha.
شيء إن نتخذها.
So shay'a, and then the noon with the kasra. Shay'ani. Instead of doing,
شيئا
yeah, shay'an ittakhadhaha.
شيئا نتخذها.
Excellent. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Aisha, do you want to try the last one? وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ. Okay, looks like her mic is not working. Okay, so the last one is, okay, there's a few more examples. I'll do the remaining. Basically, إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقُ. يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقُ. So, ولا تقولوا ثلاثة انتهوا خيرا لكم. ثلاثة انتهوا. Likewise. وأنه أهلك عادا الأولى. عادا الأولى. ومثل كلمة خبيثة كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت. خبيثة اجتثت. So as you can see, this happens a lot. Yeah, these situations arise not regularly, but a lot. So you need to know what to do in these scenarios. If there's a tanween, the end of the first word, there's a tanween, and the next word begins with a sukoon, then you read the noon of the tanween with a kasra. You read the noon of the tanween with a kasra. Any questions? With a kasra, yeah. Sorry.
You know, when you're saying you add the noon when you're joining together when there's two sukoons, tanween, followed by a sukoon. So, you know, in the Indo-Pak, in the Indo-Pak Quran, they already have the noon written, small noon inside it, so you join it together. So would you not think that's easier or not? Or
okay, there you go. Okay. Firstly, it's not consistent. It's not consistent. It's written in some places, it's not written in others, which is a common theme with the Indo-Pak Mushaf. The rules are applied. So basically, where it expects you to carry on, it'll do that, and where it expects you to stop, it won't do that. So, for instance, here, can you see? It's not done that, is it?
yeah, but because in our first lesson, if you remember, where we're supposed to like stop and not stop, and we, you know, prefer stop and prefer not stop. So if it's a circle, then we're supposed to stop. So it should be Kul Huwallahu Ahad at the end of an ayat.
So then why don't you make it into a sukun then? Because you're supposed to stop.
Because you have the option to carry on.
Yeah, so where do you have this option to carry on? If you have the option to carry on, then why isn't there the noon with the small noon with the kasra, which I know is there in some places in the Indo-Pak Mushaf? Why isn't it there here? Why isn't it giving you the option here to carry on then? Like you said, there is the option to carry on.
Yeah, but
So
that's
basically,
what
the point I'm making is, sorry, go ahead.
what I'm not grasping is that if it's an ayat, then we have to stop. So it's better to stop. So if I just stop at Qul Huwallahu Ahad.
I can give you other examples as well, elsewhere as well, where this is not written. But the point I'm trying to make, even though I disagree with the way it's marked in the Indo-Pak Mushaf with that small noon below the next letter, because that's completely incorrect. That's not how Arabic is. The tanween belongs to the first word. It doesn't belong on a small noon here. Yeah, it's incorrect. That's not how Arabic is at all. The Quran is Arabic. Like markings cannot be in other than how Arabic is marked, if you know what I mean. The tanween is never written like that in Arabic. So firstly, the marking itself is questionable with regards to whether that marking is a valid way to write a tanween in the first place. Yeah, whether it's a valid way to write the tanween. Secondly, even if that argument you set it aside, it's not consistent. Where the Indo-Pak Mushaf forces you to stop, it won't give you that. It won't show you what to do to carry on. Like the example here, I can show you elsewhere as well where it's not the end of the ayah. I'll have to look for it, but I can definitely show you where the marking is not there. So basically the point is, okay, the marking is there, but it's not in line with how Arabic is. Secondly, even if that marking, you kind of acknowledge that marking, it's not consistent. Do you get the point? Whereas with the Uthmani Mushaf, once you know what to do, you do it. You from Fatiha to Nas, you know what to do. You'll never slip up on that. You'll always know what to do. Doesn't matter whether it's the end of an ayah, in the middle of an ayah, anywhere, you'll know what to do. So yeah, that would be my response. Yeah, consistency is key. So that's the beauty of the Uthmani Mushaf. The marking always shows you how to carry on, because that's the, what do you say? That's the asl. So when you're reciting, the assumption is that you're carrying on. Stopping is an exception, like you choose to stop or you have to stop or you're forced to stop, whatever. Stopping is an exception. The assumption is that you're carrying on. So all the markings are on the basis that you're carrying on. All you now need to know is how to stop. That's all. So the Mus'haf is not going to tell you have to stop here, you have to stop there. Oh, we are not going to show you how to carry on there because I want you to stop here. Nothing of that sort. So it's consistent throughout, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand what you're trying to say, Ustad. It's just probably because I've been reading the Indo-Pak Quran all my life. I think
don't worry. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I've had this. So rest assured, you're not the first person to ask that question. And yeah, I myself have noticed that anyway. So it's yeah. So yeah. Most of the questions, they're repeated questions. So don't worry about it. Yeah. So this is how you do it. Anything, inshallah ta'ala, with regards to this issue. So when a tanween is followed by a sukoon, you read the noon of the tanween with a kasra. You read the noon of the tanween with a kasra. That's all.
Ustaz, I just wanted to clarify something. So here the two kasratain is aligned with each other. So just for my own understanding, are they aligned because it's a tanween followed by a hamza? Is that the reason, or because a hamza tul wasl is a hamza, isn't it? Or
no, they are aligned because the default is idhar, and in this case as well. So even though you're introducing a kasra, Like a letter with a kasra, a letter with a haraka, by default, you're reading it clearly, isn't it? So it's an idhar, if that makes sense. A letter, when you read it with a haraka, it cannot, so only sukoons can interact. Yeah, a sukoon can be distinct idhar, can be merged idgham, can be this or that. A letter with a haraka is always in a state of idhar. You can't do anything with it. The fact that it carries a haraka means you have to articulate it clearly.
Okay, so in this,
Yeah.
so in these cases, then, so the fact that the fathatain and the kasratain are aligned and the dhamma is written like that, it's not to do with the fact that a throat letter is coming up, whether it's
No, there is
hamzatul.
no throat letter. The Hamzatul Wasl is disregarded when you're reciting and you're carrying on. It's just it plays no role whatsoever. The fact that you're reading it with the kasra means that you're going to read it clearly. You can't kind of now merge it with anything because you have to read it with the kasra, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
It's in the state of idhar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, don't worry about it, inshallah ta'ala. So now coming to this week, inshallah ta'ala, that was technically from last week. But yeah, so we need to tie up things today, inshallah ta'ala. We need to complete our discussion. Some of these things which I'm mentioning today might feel a bit obscure, but we need to mention them nonetheless, because when you're reciting the Quran, if the Quran is trying to tell you, if the Mushaf is trying to tell you something, you need to know what it's trying to tell you, yeah? So, Bismillah, let's start. This one is something which is generally applicable. Firstly, with regards to letters which are read, so these letters are part of the recitation but are not a part of the writing of the Quran. Like we mentioned, both are wahi, both are revelation. The way the Quran is written is revelation, wahi, and the way the Quran is recited is revelation, wahi. Yeah, so there's no room for ijtihad, or there is no room for, oh, I can better do it this way, that way. No, it's how it was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there are some letters which are a part of the recitation which are not written, and we have mentioned this already, or we have alluded to it at least, that letters like, for instance, written like this alif here, Ar-Rahman, this alif is not written as a part of the writing of the Quran. You don't see like a complete alif here. Like here, Maluhu. So this Maluhu, this alif is written as a part of the writing, yeah, as a complete letter. Whereas this alif is indicated to after the meme, and it's not written as a part of the script, yeah. So letters in between words. So that's in between the word, isn't it? It's not at the end or anything. It's in between the word. So it's always read, because there's no way you're not going to drop it, but in any circumstance, because it's in the middle of a word. Yeah. Ar-Rahman, this alif is always going to be read. There's no scenario in which you're not going to read that alif. Whereas letters at the end, usually, as a general rule, 99.5% of the cases, you're going to read it only when you join. So for instance, ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب ماله, this wow mad, ماله وما كسب, this wow mad, which is indicated to with a small letter here, is only read when you carry on. So when you stop, it's gone. So if you were to stop there for whatever reason, ما أغنى عنه ماله, ماله. So you obviously when you stop, you make the last letter into a sukoon. So this ha, you're going to read it with a sukoon. So you're going to read it maluh. So this letter is read. This letter which is in between is read only on joining. The reason being that mad, that elongation, is caused only by due to you carrying on. It's in like literally is called madus sila. Madus sila meaning the mad which is caused by connection. Sila meaning the connection. Yeah, mad which is caused by carrying on. So when you stop, it's gone. Does that make sense? So these small letters which are written in between words are always read, no exception. Whereas these small letters at the ends of words, generally speaking, will get dropped if you stopped on them, if you stopped on that word. Does that make sense? Shibir, does that make sense?
Yes, Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. Okay. Bismillah. Yeah, so just to emphasize the point, yeah, so those letters are usually going to be letters of mad, yeah, elongation, either an alif mad or a ya mad or a wa mad. So for instance here, the ayah above, so for instance, Ibrahim, the alif in the word Ibrahim is not written. So Ibrahim, Imran, yeah, Al-Alamin, yeah, all of those you're always going to read them as in the middle of the word. So it can also be a ya, even though this is rare, or less frequent as to the alif, as compared to the alif. So ilafihim, ilafihim. Obviously, this alif as well is the same, and ilafihim, this ya as well is always read. Likewise, وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ Dawood. This wow, second wow is not written, but it's read always. Yeah. So letters which are not a part of the writing of the Quran and they're indicated to with these small letters, they are always read, no exception when they're in between the words. They're typically going to be alif mads, ya mads, or wow mads. Yeah, they're going to be letters of elongation. When we come to letters in between words, these letters. Sorry?
Can I just ask, are they just the alif, waw, and
Usually, we look at the other possibilities, but usually it's just these. Yeah, it's usually just an alif mads, ya mads, and waw mads. Usually just these. Okay? It cannot, so with regards to in between words, it's just these three situations which are relevant to us with regards to this point, which is the ha, which is the pronoun. It comes as a suffix in words, this ha, which can either have a dhamma or it can take a kasra. It can either take a dhamma or a kasra. So this ha, so for instance, tajalla rabbuhu lil jabal, rabbuhu. Yeah, this Rabbuhu meaning his Lord. Tajalla Rabbuhu lil Jabal. Rabbuhu lil Jabal. But if you stop there, then you just say Tajalla Rabbuh. Tajalla Rabbuh. That's it. Likewise, يحسب أن ماله أخلده. What's this? What's happening here? Yes, this is a letter of elongation, but what is it followed by? It's followed by a hamza. So like we said, if an elongation is followed by a hamza, then you read it 4 counts, twice that you do normally. So you see the squiggly line on top, which tells you that it's longer than normal. Yeah. But obviously, again, if you stop here, it's all gone. يحسب أن ماله. That's it. Likewise, this ha, which is the pronoun, this ha, which is a pronoun, meaning his. Yeah. Likewise, ربه. نعم. فتلقى آدم من ربه كلمات. ربه كلمات. But if you stop there, فتلقى آدم من ربه. That's it. That man, it's got nothing to do. Likewise, وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. به إلا. Yeah. So this mad again, it's more than 2. So twice it's normal, which is 4 counts because of the hamza after it. But obviously when you stop, you drop it. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. So likewise the word هذه. هذه. It's got a mad when you carry on. هذه ناقة الله لكم آية. هذه. And if it's followed by Hamza, then twice that. But if you stop there for whatever reason, هذه. هذه. That's it. زادته هذه إيمانا. So it's 4 counts because of the Hamza. But if you stop there, زادته هذه. That's it. Any questions?
Ustaz, just a quick one. So, just in terms of the actual symbols, so obviously the wow, and whenever it's a alif or wow mad, it's just like a small alif and a small wow. But for the ya, what is that symbol?
Yeah, this one, it's a yeah as well, but it doesn't look nice on this digitized font. So just a second. So should be able to find. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ. Okay, so it's here. So it's in Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah. It is the yeah as well, but it's written like this. In the last line, آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ. Yeah. That's one way of writing the yeah. Okay.
So would you just say, okay, so that's just another way of writing the yeah, then it's not, but
Yeah, it's nothing special about it. It's just a yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Bismillah. Okay. So so it's just for these three letters. So the ha, sorry, these two letters, the ha, which is the pronoun, it can either be who or he, depending upon the situation, and hadihi, the word hadihi. So when you carry on, then you do the elongation when it's indicated. Yeah, when it's indicated, you'll see the u, the wow, or the ya mad. And if it's followed by a hamza, then obviously the ruling of the hamza applies. So you make it twice that you do normally. So you do it 4 counts. Any questions on that? Any questions? Zainab, any questions?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Adam, do you have a question, please?
No, sorry, I unmuted on accident.
Sorry?
No, I unmuted my mic on accident, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Did someone else have a question? Okay, there you go. Yeah, so it's just these 3 letters, yeah? Sorry, these 2 letters. So like, I think Brother Shabir asked the question. So those letters in between, so these, is it just going to be the alif or the waw or the ya mad? No. This just happens in these specific situations, yeah? So this happens once in Surah Al-Anbiya. So this small, so whenever a letter is written small, yeah, it's not a part of the writing of the Quran, yeah? If it is to be recited, yeah, if it is a letter which is going to be recited, you treat it like any other letter. Just like if it's a small letter, doesn't mean it's optional or it's like you don't need to worry about it or whatever it is. Yeah, if you know that you need to read the letter, you don't treat it any different to any other letter. Yeah, it's the same. With regards to the recitation, as far as it goes, it's the same. So the noon here, so this noon here is in between the noon and the jim, and this noon, as you can see, doesn't have a sukoon on it. So that means it's going to be read with an ikhfa. Yeah, so the technical term is ikhfa. So you're going to read كَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Okay. So that's how you would read it. So obviously it's not a alif or a waw or a yamad. Yeah. So there are a couple of instances, one in Surah Al-Qiyamah and another in Surah Al-Ahqaf, where you have the ya, but it's not a yamad. So ay yuhyi al mauta. So this ya, which is not written, has a kasra. So, نعم. So, أليس الله بقادر على أن يحيي الموتى. يحيي. You treat it like any other letter. That's it. Like nothing too complicated about it. So in Surah Al-Naml, this is interesting because this ya at the end of the fatha, it's at the end of the word. It's not a ya mad, even though technically it was originally satani. Okay, we don't need that. We don't need that discussion for now. So atani Allahu. When you're carrying on, there's no issue. You read atani Allahu. Atani Allahu. But if you stop there, you can do one of two things. You can either read that ya or you can drop that ya. So you can read Fama atani. Atani. Or you can also do Fama atan. And you can drop that letter if you want. Both are allowed. You can do either. So these are like those examples of letters which are not alif or a waw or a ya mad. Alif or a waw or a ya mad. These are those few exceptions. So you need to know what to do when you come across them when you recite. Any questions? Ilyas, any questions?
Well, I don't know if this is a question or not, but I'm used to reading it. فَمَا آتَانِيَ اللَّهُ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا آتِكُمْ.
Yeah.
The simple reason being is because there's nothing there like a toy or something for me to stop.
Yeah. No, but if you had to stop, that's the point. If you had to stop, this is how you would stop.
But then if I stop, would that not change the meaning?
See, good point. That's a good question. See, when we learn Tajweed, how to recite, it's not on the basis of the meaning. It's on the basis of if you had to stop, how would you stop? Yeah. So it's not whether that's a good place to stop or not. It's not whether is that a good place to stop, is that not a good place that is on the basis of the meaning implied. It's if you had to stop there, how would you stop?
So if I stopped as in Fama Atani, then if I was to continue again, would I continue as Allah khairum mimma atikum or Atani Allah mimma atikum?
Yeah, you better to go back at least Fama atani Allah, at least that, yeah. But the point being, this is just to tell you that this is how we have received the transmission from the Prophet ﷺ, generation after generation, that this is how it is recited. If you have to stop there, this is how you stop. Basically, the reason being, this is an exception to the general rule. The general rule is that you just drop it. Atan, as a general rule. Yeah? As a general rule, it's something which is at the end of the word, you just drop it as a general rule. But telling you that you're allowed to read it as well, as in even when you stop. Atani. So what does this tell you? This is from revelation. It's not from anyone's ijtihad. It's not anyone's decided, oh, you can do that as well. No, this is how the Prophet ﷺ taught us. If that makes sense, yeah? It's just to tell you, if you wanted to stop, this is how you stop. Not because it's a rule which I or someone else has come up with. This is how we have received it from transmission. Okay?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So we are not saying whether that's a good place to stop or not. All we are saying is if you had to stop, that's how you're allowed to do either or. That's all. So that's a good point. So whenever we talk about something in recitation, those who are learning Tajweed as well, this is a point we repeat more than once. It's not whether that's a good place to do. It's whether you know the rule relating to that. If you had to stop there, what would you do? If you have to start there, what would you do? Not that it's a good place to start or stop. What would you do in that? Because all of that is preserving the knowledge of the recitation of the Qur'an and how we apply it. The other scenario, now now this is slightly different now. So this waw is not written. Yeah, the second waw is not written. Is not written not because it's the one which is caused by connection. It's not because it's like these. It's not because it's like this. Rabbuhu, maluhu. It's unlike those. It's unlike those because it's not a waw mad which is caused by connection. It's a mad which is originally a part of the word. It's originally a part of the word, and it's not something which is caused by connection. The reason it's not written as such, as a second waw, is because a qaida, because of a rule in the writing of the language. Obviously, the first reason is that it's wahi, but the second thing is the writing of the Arabic language. There's a rule which is called iktifa'un bi harfin wahid, meaning sufficing with just one letter. So if there is a waw followed by a waw mad, or there is a ya followed by a ya mad in the writing, the Arabs, they don't repeat the same letter in writing, they just write it once. They just write it once. So in these situations, it's not a letter because it's not an additional letter because of carrying. And this alif after actually indicates that it's a part of the word and not additional. So if you were to stop there, or you would still do the mad. So وَإِن تَلْوُوا وَإِن تَلْوُوا, but you typically carry on the وَإِن تَلْوُوا أَوْ تُعْرِضُوا فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. But if you stop there, فَأْوُوا, that's it. لِتَسْتَوُوا عَلَى ظُهُورِهِ. Yeah? لِتَسْتَوُوا, if you stopped, because this is not a waw of carrying on, of connection. This is a waw which is a part of the word. It's not written because it's the waw mad which is preceded by another waw. Yeah, that's why it's not written as a part of the script, but it is a part of the word. So obviously these things are like kind of obscure things, but I'm pointing it out because it's just bringing together everything, tying up the things, inshallah ta'ala, mentioning them so that you know what to do when you go. Likewise, the ya which is followed by another ya which is followed by a ya mad, especially towards the end of the words, this ya, second ya is not written. But if you happen to stop there, you read the ya mad. So if you stopped here, you would read yuhyi. So yuhyi, nuhyi, fayuhyi. Yeah, la yastahyi, uhyi, wa nastahyi, wa yastahyi. But from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these are not places where you typically stop anyway. But because you're learning how to use the Mushaf, we're pointing these things out to you, inshallah ta'ala. That's all. These are not places where you typically stop. Yeah, they are not places of recognized stopping, but so that you know the ruling, so that you know what you're supposed to be doing. It becomes a bit tricky if this ya, which is actually a part of the word, like we've explained, it's the only reason it's not written is because of the two yas coming together. If the next word begins with a sukoon, then this ya is not written. Yeah, obviously because it's a mad, it gets dropped. So you read, so it's written Arini kayfa tuhyil mauta. Yeah, because of the next word beginning with a sukoon, lam sakina. Yeah, but if you stop there, you still need to do the mad, and obviously it's not written. So, but yeah, it's good to know. And none of these situations is a place where you stop anyway, like a recognized place of stopping. But just so that you know, inshallah ta'ala, you learn Arabic, you learn the proper recitation of the Quran, and you learn the proper understanding of the Quran, inshallah ta'ala. So these things will inshallah help you at that point. Okay, this is how you correctly apply the ruling on the bit, and you can understand as well, inshallah ta'ala. This is just mentioning because the ya there is not written, but if you stop there, then you have to do that ya mad. For the reason being, it's a part of the word. The only reason it's not written there because the next word begins with the sukoon. Yuhyil mauta, li muhyil mauta, يحيي العظام. قال من يحيي العظام. But if you stop there, قال من يحيي, you complete the mad. You don't do قال من يحيي. يحيي. Yeah, you don't do لا محيي. Yeah, so you complete the mad. Likewise, even though it's kind of an obscure topic, but nonetheless worth mentioning, so that we I kind of fulfill my responsibility of saying like how do you use the Musaf. Yeah, so this is a part of that, inshallah ta'ala. Any questions on this? Any questions on this? So as a general ruling, letters in between, within words, small letters which are not a part of the script, you always read them. And small letters in between, you drop them when you stop. And that is applicable for these situations. Yeah, when it's a ha, for ha with a dhamma followed by a waw, ha with a kasra followed by ya, yamad, or hadihi. So for these three, and this will be the overwhelming scenarios you come across. Like 99.5% of the cases, this is what it will be. It's and in that case, you just drop it if you stop. If you stop, you drop. Any questions? Any questions? Khalida, sorry, any questions?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So now we mentioned so that section has finished, inshallah ta'ala. So now we come back to the Hamzatul Wasl, which we mentioned at the start of the course, week 2. With regards to Hamzatul Wasl, how do we know with what do we read the Hamzatul Wasl? Do you read it with a fatha or a kasra or a dhamma? And we mentioned the Hamzatul Wasl, when is it read with a fatha?
When there's a lam after it.
Very good, very good. To be more precise, when it's the lam ta'rif. Lam ta'rif meaning the definite article, like al, this prefix. Yeah, this prefix al, then you read it with a fatha. Correct, that's good. When do you read it with the kasra? When do you read the Hamzatul Wasl with the kasra? Someone?
When the third letter has a kasra or a fatha, and the letter before it is not lam.
Excellent, very good. Jazakallahu khairan. Yeah, excellent. That's spot on. And if that letter, the third letter, or the letter after the sukoon has a dhamma, then you read it with a dhamma. Yeah, that's the general rule. That's the general rule, and you will almost never make a mistake if you applied this. You'll almost never make a mistake if you applied this. But there are some apparent exceptions to this rule. I won't say actual exceptions, apparent exceptions, which you should know about. Like I said, handful of situations, just mentioning them so that you know them, inshallah ta'ala. So first one, with regards to the lam. So like we mentioned, this Hamzatul Wasl is read with a fatha only if this lam is the al prefix. The al prefix. If this happens to be a part of the word originally, it's not one of these. Yeah, if it's a word which actually begins like this, with then it doesn't fall into this category where you read it with a fatha. Yeah. So Allahu Alam, I've found like 11 words in the Quran which are of that nature. Yeah, but 8 of them, they have another prefix before them, so you'd never be in a situation to start on them anyway. So for instance, faltaqa, you'd never be in a situation to read this Hamzatul Wasl because you'll always read the prefix. Likewise, faltamisu, والغوا والغوا والعنهم والعنهم sorry والتفت والتفت yeah فالتقطه yeah فالتقمه واليسع all of these you'll be reading you'd read with the kasra. You'd read with the kasra if you wanted to know, but you never get to start, so it kind of doesn't matter. So these three words potentially you could, they're derived forms of the same word basically. Iltaqa, iltaqata, iltaqaytum. Yeah, so you read it with the kasra. You read it with the kasra. It goes back to this ruling of it's preceded by, so the third letter has a fatha. This lam is not the prefix lam. Yeah, it's not the definite article. Yeah, these are actually verbs. Yeah, so you read it with the kasra. Iltaqa, iltaqata, iltaqaytum. Yeah, so you read it with a kasra. Yeah, and they occur so in these places. Yeah, so but and alhamdulillah, so it's not a place where you start anyway. Typically you wouldn't start there, so you'd be okay anyway. So Yawm al-Taqal Jama'an, Allahu Alam, is a reference to Yawm al-Uhud, the battle, the day of Uhud. Likewise, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ فِي فِئَتَيْنِ الْتَقَتَا. Again, you'd read it with the kasra if you start with the iltaqata. Likewise, وَإِذْ يُرِيكُمُوهُمْ إِذِ الْتَقَيْتُمْ. إِذِ الْتَقَيْتُمْ. Again, if you started there, you read it with the kasra. Yeah, because this this lam is not that type of lam. The al. Yeah, it's not that. So it goes into the general ruling. So you just look at the letter after, it's got a fatha, so you read it with the kasra. But like we said, it happens only in these handful of situations, and you'd never start on it anyway. Yeah. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Okay. The next few things you need to know is these words. You would think you'd read them with a dhamma on the basis of what we have discussed so far. You would think that you'd read them with a dhamma on the basis of what we have discussed so far, but that is not the case. You read them with a kasra, all of them, but for different reasons. So the first row, these are all words. So these are all words. You read it with the kasra because this dhamma is actually forced on because of the waw. The waw mad forces this letter to take a dhamma. In all of these situations, the haraka is originally a kasra. It's a kasra. So this dhamma is being forced on because of the waw mad. So it's qada yaqdi. So bana yabni. So masha yamshi. Ata ya'ti. So it's a kasra originally. So this dhamma has been forced on. So you read it with the kasra in all these instances. Yeah. Iqdu, ibnu, imshu, itu. We'll talk about that later. So it only happens in these scenarios. And obviously, like we mentioned, it's not a place where you typically start. It's not a place where you typically start. So thumma qudu, but if you started there, iqudu, animshu. If you started there, imshu. Likewise, ibnu happens twice in the Quran. The last one, itu, it occurs in more than one place. We look at it. We read it itu, and not itu. Yeah, we read it. Why? This is something you need to know. Because the Arabs, when there's a hamza followed by another hamza which has a sukoon, they don't read it as such. They don't, like for instance here, if you had to start there, then you would read itina. That's too sharp. The Arabs don't like that, so they make the second hamza into an alif. So if you were to start there, you'd read it so not an alif in this case. Obviously, it's because you're reading it with the kasra. You make this mad would be a ya mad. Itina, itina, itina bima ta'iduna. Yeah. Likewise, eti. When you start there, if you're carrying on, then you read it normally. Yeah. وقالوا يا صالح ائتنا بما تعدنا. You read the Hamza Sakin as it is. But if you happen to start there, then you read it with a, you make the Hamza Sakina into a mad, basically. The mad which is corresponding. So it's either going to be a waw mad or a ya mad, depending upon which haraka this Hamzatul Wasl takes. If it takes a kasra, then you read it with as a ya. And you can see, and it's indicated. So if the alif is actually, if the Hamza is sat on a ya, then it's going to be a kasra, and you're going to read this as a ya. Itina, itiya. So here, ituni. But here, see, the Hamza is sat on a waw. The reason being, the letter after carries a dhamma. So you read it utumina if you were to start there. Utumina. But generally, you wouldn't start there. You'd carry on from what's there before. فَلْيُؤَدِّ الَّذِي اؤْتُمِنَ أَمَانَتَهُ وَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبَّهُ. Yeah. So if you were to start in such scenarios where the Hamzatul Wasl is followed by a Hamza with a sukoon, then you make it into a mad. The only place you would typically start is Surah Al-Ahqaf, verse 4. This is a place where you actually start. So here you need to know what to do. So you don't do ituni or you don't do utuni. People might make those mistakes. It's not utuni because you see a dhamma after it, or it's not ituni, even though the kasra is correct. The kasra is correct. It is e, but it's not I. You make it into a mad. Ituni bi kitab. But obviously, if you happen to carry on, then there is no mad. Am lahum shirkun fis samawati tuni bi kitab. Does that make sense? People are dropping like flies. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan. Okay. Yeah, so that's what you would do. That's what you would do. Any questions? So you only really need to know this Surah Al-Ahqaf, verse 4, where you could potentially start there. You do ituni bi kitab. Yeah, that's the only place. Okay, from now on it's smooth sailing, inshallah ta'ala. There's not too much to worry about. So the next one is, it's ittaqu. People can potentially think it's uttaqu. It's not uttaqu, it's ittaqu. Why? Because the letter after the sukoon is actually merged. It's the same letter, it's merged together. So it's actually a fatha. Yeah, the fatha there is the haraka which is considered. Yeah, that's the letter, that's the fourth letter, the qaf. So the second letter and the third letter are the same, which is the ta. So it's actually a fatha, which is to be considered. So it's a kasra. So you read ittaqu if you start there. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah. If you carry it on, but if you started there, ittaqullah. Ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih. Yeah. So some people might make the mistake, like even like those who are delivering the khutbah, you could potentially hear uttaqullah, which is incorrect. It's ittaqullah. Ittaqullah. The last three words, they are just nouns, and you read them with a kasra. Ibnu, even if it has a dhamma, you read it with a kasra. Ibnu, imru'u, you read it with a kasra. And ismu, you read it with a kasra. Yeah, just just so that we keep the conversation simple, even though like it's just so that we keep the conversation simple, you just read it with the kasra. Ibnu imru'un ismun. That's it. But there's never a situation where you have to start on them, so you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry. So in imru'un halaka laysa lahu walad. So imru'un ذلك عيسى بن مريم. If you started there, ibn Maryam. Yeah. ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله اسم الله. Yeah. That's all. That's all to do with these. That's all you need to know. So all these things we talked about in regards to Hamzatul Wasl, they are not situations where you would start anyway typically, except for this one in Surah Al-Ahqaf. This one, this bottom left. Ituni, that's the only place where you would typically start. Everywhere else is just so that you know. That's all. Yeah. So, generally speaking, you apply this rule. You apply this rule everywhere else, and you'll be fine, inshallah ta'ala. You'll be reading it correctly. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Bismillah. So there are a couple of words here in the Quran in Surah Al-Hajj which look like they're starting on a sukoon. So there's a reason for it, but just so that you know, if you were to start there, you read with the kasra. So liyaqta', liyaqta', liyaqdu, just so that you know. Liyaqta', liyaqdu. Yeah, but typically you wouldn't start there. You wouldn't start there. But if you did, it's with the kasra. ليقطع ليقضوا. And the word al-aika comes 4 times in the Quran, and twice it comes without the Hamzatul Wasl. It comes without the Hamzatul Wasl. But obviously, if you were to read this word, you would read it with the Hamzatul Wasl, which is not written. It's written in 2 places, and 2 places it's not. Why? That's how it is. It's revelation. That's how it was revealed. Yeah. We can't add a letter. We can't take away a letter. Yeah. But if you recite there, you start there, even though it's not a good place to start, you read it with the Hamzatul Wasl and the normal ruling. Al-Aika. Because it's a Lam Ta'rif. It's the Al. Yeah. So Al-Aika. But if you come across these words beginning with a sukoon, don't get perplexed. That's how you read it. Yeah. Everything has a hukum, has a way to do it. Yeah. Everything has a way to do it. And then Surah Al-Fussilat, this is the only time this happens in the Quran, according to our recitation. You'll see a dot. You'll see a dot on top of the alif. That's actually a hamza, a second hamza there. But you don't read the 2 clearly. So you don't read a'jamiyyun wa arabi. You don't do a'jamiyyun wa arabi. You don't read the 2 hamzas clearly. The second hamza, that's why it's indicated too with this like a dot. To tell you the second hamza, you're not going to read it clearly. So the first and the second are kind of together. A'jamiyyun wa arabi. Instead of yeah. So you don't read them both clearly. You read it like you read it with easing, with tasheel. Yeah. You ease into the second one without like being like clearly finishing off the first one and then doing the second one like jamiyun. You don't do that. Yeah. This is how you recite. Jamiyun wa arabi. Yeah. That's how you recite. So if you see that in the Mushaf, that's what is expected of you. And then Surah Hud. Surah Hud, again, only one place this happens. You're required to read this word with ibalah. So even though it's technically an alif and the ra technically is a fatha, you read it in between a fatha and a kasra. So that's why the ra doesn't have a fatha on it. It has like a diamond below it. So you read it majriha wa mursaha. So you don't do majraha, you do majriha. So this is what the sign in the Mushaf means. The sign in the Mushaf means you read it in between. It's not a fatha. It's kind of in between a fatha and a kasra. So majri, not majra, not majri, majriha, majriha. Again, happens only one place. Yeah. Surah Yusuf. Surah Yusuf. So this again only happens once. So where you're supposed to read with you have a choice actually. You can read with ishmam or ikhtilas, but the marking in the mushaf, the way you do it is so you can see like a small diamond on top of the meme. So what you're required to do, is when you're holding the noon with the shadda, like we mentioned, the noon with the shadda and the meme with the shadda, you always hold. So when you're holding it, you make the shape of the dhamma with your lips. So ta'manna. So when you don't hear anything different. Okay, sorry, I saw your message just now, Aisha. That's fine, inshallah ta'ala, no issues. Yeah, so ta'manna. So you circle your lips, make the shape of the dhamma with your lips when you recite. But obviously it doesn't affect the sound. But that's what it means, the marking in the mushaf. That's what it means. That's what you're required to do. If you see a scene above the sword, and this happens in 2 places in the Quran, that means you have to read the scene you have to read the sword as a scene. You have to. You can't, yeah? So you read the sword as a scene. So, Wallahu yaqbidu wa yabsutu, not wa yabsutu, no. وَيَبْسُطُ. Yeah, and likewise, fil khalqi bastah, not bastah. No, you don't do it with the sword, you do it with the sin. Bastah.
So can you just
These 2 places, if you
why-
see the
why-
sin. Why is that? Sorry?
Why is it not just written with a sin instead of a sword?
It's Revelation.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So yeah. It's written as a sword and recited as a scene. Yeah, there are other recitations. Where it's different, but in our recitation, this is how it is. Okay. Yeah, cool. In Surah At-Tur, you can see the scene written below the sword. In which case you have a choice. You can either read it as a sword or you can read it as a scene. Both are transmitted. So you can recite it as either. So أم هم المسيطرون with a sword, or أم هم المسيطرون with a sin. Both are allowed. If the sin is written on top of the sword, that means you have to read it as a sin. If it's written below, that means you can do either or. Yeah, you can do either or. And with that, we've kind of. Obviously, there are a lot more things which I wish I could talk about, but I wish we could talk about. But I think if you kind of keep all these things in mind, when you recite, And obviously these notes are with you for reference. So if you come across something when you're reciting, you can always look them up, and you can know what you need to do in those instances. And obviously that's just the first or the second time you may have to look it up, but third time, fourth time, you'll know what to do. You'll know what to do. So this is just so that as a reference for you, inshallah ta'ala. And obviously, like we've mentioned, the shape folder, you have all these. You have all the material available to you. So not just for your reference, if you want to help someone else as well, by all means, you can use this material. Yeah, go through everything which you have discussed, and by the end of it, hopefully, the person should have the tools necessary to be able to know what the Mushaf is trying to tell him. So whenever he looks at the Mushaf, he knows, oh, that sign means such and such. That's what is required. That's what it means, so and so. Yeah, so that's for you, inshallah ta'ala. And where is it? Sorry. Yeah, with that, we've covered what we should, generally speaking, know, inshallah ta'ala. We've even talked about the like rare situations as well, which you may come across, which you will come across, inshallah, when you recite. Any questions? Any questions?
Ustad, you know, before when you said there's there's two examples where you have to change the sword into a scene. If you made a mistake and you like maybe forgot to read it with the scene, would that be a major mistake?
Technically, yes, because changing a letter is a major mistake. Technically, yes. Yeah. So reading the ra as a ra is not a major mistake. So yeah, you should read it heavy, ra. So you should say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. But if you said Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, yeah, you didn't make it heavy, but the letter is still ra, isn't it? So that's not a major mistake. But if you didn't make the saw, if you like made the scene into a sawd or a sawd into a scene, yes, it's the same kind of mistake, but now it's major because it's become a different letter. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Jazakallah.
Inshallah ta'ala. Any questions? Any questions? So before we finish, I think there's a few here, inshallah ta'ala, who might be interested. So just to let you know, inshallah ta'ala, the next batch of the Tajweed course will start straight after this, inshallah ta'ala. So next week we'll have the quiz, and the week after, the new batch for the Tajweed course will start. For the Tajweed course, which is a 1-year course, which will talk about everything. We'll cover everything which one needs to know with regards to reciting the Qur'an correctly. With regards to reciting the Qur'an correctly. So starting 2 weeks from now, inshallah. So next week we'll have a quiz. The week after will be the first session, inshallah ta'ala. Will be the first session, same time. And it's not just theory, yeah? So like I said, so this course was more so just about step 1. So it's more so about what. Yeah, it's more so about what. Like, what is the Musaf telling you? What is required of you? That's all. The second step is the key, which is how. How do I now do what the Musaf is telling me to do? How do I do that? And as a side point, why? To understand why you do what you're doing, which solidifies your grasp of the concepts, which helps you understand what you're doing so that you can not only do it well, but also now help others as well, teach others as well. Yeah, so the course is a year-long course. and it's like we said, it's more so. So the focus will be on theory, on your recitation, your tajweed, and also your ability to read from the Mushaf. So there are 3 parts to the course. So there's theory, there's recitation, and there's also reading. So we'll work on all of those over the duration of the course, and by the end of the course, inshallah, you'll know all the rules you need to know with regards to recitation in a very comprehensive manner and have a good understanding. So basically, this is the course plan. Yeah, so the course is for 40 weeks, and we'll go through everything that one needs to know. Everything that one needs to know with regards to the science of recitation. The science of recitation with regards to how to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Kalamullah ta'ala, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly. So the theory and practice and application. So we'll go through everything inshallah ta'ala. Any questions on that? So we'll send out, it'll be advertised today inshallah ta'ala, and you'll be able to register for the course if you are interested. And by all means, please share it with friends and family if there's anyone interested as well. Yeah, that's that inshallah ta'ala, unless there are any questions. Any questions? Questions? Okay, khair inshallah ta'ala. We'll finish the اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا بالقرآن الكريم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار واجعله لنا شفاء وشفيعا وحجة يا رب العالمين. وجزى الله عنا سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ما هو أهله. وجزاكم الله كل خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير.
حياكم.